Hello everybody, welcome back to Wild Trim. It's part two of this little mini tank overhaul. We today we got plants. You pretty much all know what's going in there. So we have more Pogostem and Halfori, which is in vitro. This one, that's what that means. In vitro comes in these little cups. And if you don't know what these little cups are, these are guaranteed snail and pest free. Okay, they're grown in this. They have never been outside of this with this little sealed lid. They've got this little slushy sort of fertilizer mixture in there. Some of them come in a fertilizer which is much more of a gel. It's more like a kind of like a ballistics gel, and I don't mean the stuff that you shoot, but we don't need to talk explosives here. So we've gone for that. Now, the benefits of that over just buying one in a pot like this is that you get an awful lot. Besides the fact that it's guaranteed pest free, you get an awful lot of stems in there. There's probably 20-25 stems in there. Whereas if you buy the potted version, you probably get 5, maybe 6. So the downside to that is planting each one of those individual little stems is very, very time consuming and frustrating. So I have actually bought some more tweezers after allegedly Mrs. Shrimp has lost ours. The next one we've gone for, that being a stem plant, is a rhodulate plant, which is Cryptocorn albida brown. Now, this has arrived in not spectacular fashion. And this is the better one of the two. Now, we need to talk about crypt melt or plant melt. You know what plant melt is? Aquarium plants are grown out of water. Sounds daft, but it's faster. It's all to do with unlimited CO2, which plants need to grow, right? So the roots are in water and they're grown immersed, meaning the foliage is out of the water. When you take that plant, it may look completely different when it is grown foliage out of water than when it's grown with foliage in water. And a lot of those plants, and even though crypts don't generally change that much, some do, but not much, they will melt back to nothing. It will look like they're dying. That's what we call plant melts. Now, crypts are the sulkiest, chlorophyll-filled things on the planet. They will melt back, but not if you change aquarium. They'll melt sometimes if you change their position in the aquarium by 3 inches. They honestly, sometimes it makes you wonder why you bother. But this little foliage here is likely to die back. Okay, so if you receive something like this, or worse, and this is worse, yeah. If you receive that, don't be disheartened. All we need to do is pray that this one has a good root structure. This one clearly does. I'm not so sure about this one. I only ever buy my plants from one source, and I've never had plants that look this bad. Now I know that it's the roots that we're interested in. So all you need is a good root structure, okay? Now, our second stem plant is one that I've never worked with before. It's also in vitro. We've got 2 of each, okay? So we've got 2 Halfori, 2 albida brown, and then 2 Hydrocotyle tripartita, which you may know as Hydrocotyle species Japan. Obviously, also another in vitro cup. This is a stem plant. So this wasn't in the original plant, but then keeping the crypt parva and the pink flamingo wasn't in the plan either. The original plan was to have this, I was going to say mountain range. It's not a mountain range. It's one, kind of a range of one. Stone stuck out of the top so that it sort of resembled a forest with the short, dense, bright green, sort of tree-like from a distance structure of the Pogostem and Halfori. However, this grows quicker and it grows a little bit taller. Now, I've never worked with it before, but I am told that you can train this almost like topiary. Maybe not the spirals, but you can kind of make a hedge out of it. So I'm thinking, do I put this at the front and try to trim it and keep it almost like a thick carpet? Or does it have to go at the back? The back makes sense because it's going to be taller, it's going to grow faster. Makes sense. But I don't often deviate from the initial plan. So every fiber of my being is saying just put it at the front. Now, there is a thing called manual retardation, which is a stupid way of saying you can make it grow smaller by pressing it down. That's literally it. You just squash it and it'll stay there for a bit and then carry on growing like that. So honestly, part of me wants to put it at the front. A big part of me wants to put it at the front. A big part of me knows it'd be better going at the back. I just don't think it's going to give such a forest look. But maybe it'll add some perspective if this is at the front, looking like you're closer to trees. I don't know. I'm not an aquascaper. I never claimed to be. I just try to make breeding tanks look half tidy. I don't normally put this much effort in, to be honest. And if I do, it goes to the wolves, goes to the dogs, goes tits up, if you want, within a couple of months, because I do not have the time to trim and maintain planted tanks. This is why we generally have epiphytes. They grow slow. I love Bucephalandra, and I love Java ferns. Trident is my favorite. I'm not a big fan of Windelov. But just on that, this Pogostem and Helphorite and this Tripartita, they are stem plants, okay? They're the ones that you have heard are so easy because if you just want more, you cut the stem, you replant it. Yeah, cool. Now, cryptocorns are what's known as a rosulate plant, which means, in fact, let's investigate the bad one, which means they grow in, get yourself a towel, at least be 20% more prepared than I am. A maidenhead towel is always well, it's a nice gimmick. They are useless towels. The pile, the twist, the nap is non-existent. They absorb nothing. They are awful. Don't buy somebody one as a present. Don't do it. Buy them any other towel on the market. It will be better. So if you split apart your rock wool, and that's not me that's done that, there's a natural cut there, and then try and tease out as many roots as you can without damaging them. This one is easy because this plant is tiny. Yeah, I'm genuinely disappointed in receiving that one. That one's not great. So what you need to do is try and get as much of this rock wool out as possible. And what we mean by rosulate is they just sort of clump together. They grow sort of on each other. Much like a lettuce. You know the way they sort of clump at the bottom? Each new leaf comes out from pretty much the same place. The cryptocorns tend to grow like that. So if you have a look at the other one with a decent root structure, again, easy to split apart, much better. This one's worth the money. Even though it doesn't look impressive, this one's worth it. It's coming apart nice and easy, which is great. If you have something like an epiphyte, because their root structure is designed to grab onto things like rock, wood, when they're floating around places and then hold on for dear life, they tend to grow into the rock wool and they're a bit harder to separate. So there's your rosulate, and you can just carefully split them apart, and it doesn't really do any damage because if you look at that one, that is basically just its own plant. Get some focus on that. There's no visible signs of stem damage. So we can break this one at least. Maybe not the other one. The other one, yeah, not impressed. But we can break this one into maybe 3. I don't want to push my luck too much. That was really holding on in there. Now, some people like to trim roots. I don't. I find it works, there we go, as a better anchor. The longer the roots you have, the better anchor they've got, the less chance they are of floating. Now we could go one more. Yeah, let's just do it. We can always buy another one if they die. Right, so we've got a couple of stems of Albido Brown. Now this stuff, they're ready to plant, by the way. And rhodulent plants, they go into the substrate. Cool. This one needs to take a little bit of preparation. And when you open up, it's kind of acidic but fruity. It's not far off mango, to be honest. Mango washing up liquid. That's what it smells like. Yeah. So regardless whether it's a liquid or the gel, you need to prepare these by taking them out and rinsing that off. Alrighty, we're back. I've dropped some water out of there as well, because if you go putting fairly chunky forearms in there, it overflows quite quickly, even with the use of tweezers. So once you've washed off your mix of fertilizer, you can start teasing this stuff apart. If you hear the snapping of a couple of roots, don't stress too much. Now you can really pull them apart so that they're individual stems, or you can get them out in clumps like this. You see the stem is running this way and the rest is growing up. We're going to plant that as one, as best as possible. Okay, so it's a nice little clump to start with. Stuff grows so dense. You get so much for your money, it can be sometimes quite difficult to tease them apart. There's another one. See, that one is huge. That is all one piece. Now you could quite easily break it apart. Like, we will just do that, and then we have two. And as long as you're planting the roots in, you shouldn't have any issues. It's fiddly because the root structure of this plant in particular is not big. But I'm going to break the rest of these apart, and then we'll see you back in a minute. You see, now I had to buy more tweezers because I'm bad enough at this with tweezers. Can you imagine trying to do this with sausage fingers? See, the problem is I am more a person of strength, brute force than finesse. So as well as this looks like it's going, nothing would surprise me more than if it actually stays there when I'm done. Normally I snag the tweezers and yank it straight back out before I've finished. That went surprisingly well. Some say the planting is relaxing. I say it's highly frustrating. So this is the hydrocotyle, and I'll be honest, the root structure is so small, and I'm just having to sort of clump plant leaves and all. Oh, this is going to be a nightmare. This is why I hate planting in substrate like this. This does not make it easier. It makes it infinitely harder. These little balls of nothingness that offer no resistance to anything. A newborn otter could sneeze and destroy this plant. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this plant already. However, this plant is very versatile. So you don't actually have to plant it at all. It is a stem plant, and most stem plants can grow without being planted at all. So a lot of stem plants actually get most of their nutrients straight from the water column. Even though they might have an impressive root structure, that might only account for 25% of their nutrient uptake. But this one can run completely as an epiphyte. So if you did want to just make it look as if, say, two rocks were one and you want to hide the crevice in the middle, this is a great way to do it. And I think, Yes, I've only been trying to plant this for 2 minutes. But I think if I ever go near this plant again, it will be in an epiphyte capacity. Right, so that is the outcome of the efforts today. The Albeida brown is almost non-visible. However, Albeida does grow quite bushy, so I think in maybe 4 to 5 years, that brown band through the middle may look quite nice. Just depends if I can wait that long. And yes, I can, because this is not a showcase tank. This is a breeding tank for 3 of the least colourful killifish I've ever seen in my life. That's where we are. Hopefully the Albeida will grow in pretty quickly. Probably could have thinned one of the hydrocotyls out from that area to bring over to here, but I might just move some parva down. You can tell that I'm not huge on planting small things in gravel that offers no resistance. So as well as your least favorite plant, your favorite plant, and your favorite plant that you refuse to deal with, why don't you put your pet peeve about planted tanks in the comments as well? I would love to read somebody else's frustrations for once. But as it is, it's late. I've got to get this topped up. And then because I'm a child, I'm excited for chicken Kiev and mashed potatoes. Apparently it's not okay to admit that a 38-year-old in a week likes mashed potatoes. Yeah, if that's news to you, put that in a comment as well, because I love mash. I live to modify and mash potato. Anyway, guys, that is our little overhaul. I'll give you an update when it grows in. Thank you for joining me on this one, and I'll see you in the next one.